Have you ever felt like you're doing 1,000 things but not really getting closer to anything that matters? The day slips by in a blur of endless tasks, yet inside, you feel empty. It's not because you lack motivation, it's because you're missing intentional focus, the kind that helps you tell the difference between being busy and truly living. In an age where everything is fighting for your attention, from phone notifications and emails to social media and racing thoughts, your mind slowly becomes scattered, exhausted, and disconnected from what truly matters. But what's being stolen isn't just your time. It's your ability to be present, to give something your full energy, to feel aligned with your purpose. The Stoics never sought peace by escaping the world. They trained their minds to stay calm within the noise, because they understood that focus isn't just a skill, it's the signature of a free mind. This video isn't just about telling you what to do, it's about helping you understand why it's been so hard to do it, and how to take back every ounce of clarity the world has tried to steal from you. If you've ever felt like you're losing yourself in the chaos, I invite you to share your story below. What are you struggling to focus on? Or how are you finding your way back? Your truth might be exactly what someone else out there needs to hear. 1. Today is all we truly have. The moment you believe tomorrow is guaranteed, you stop living like today matters. That's the lie that kills your focus. Not all at once, but slowly, subtly, one wasted day at a time. It starts the same way for many men. You wake up, glance at your phone, and delay getting out of bed. The day begins in reaction mode. Meetings, emails, noise. You tell yourself you'll do the important work later. You'll call your father this weekend. You'll start working out on Monday. You'll slow down once things calm down. But they never do. Because you've trained your mind to believe time is infinite when the Stoics warned us it never was. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor responsible for the fate of an entire empire, reminded himself, you could leave life right now. Not to induce fear, but urgency, clarity, perspective. While most chased legacy, he practiced presence. There's a man I once met, 52, divorced, successful by every standard, expensive watch, a company car, and a respected title. But his eyes told a different story. During a conversation over coffee, he admitted something quietly, as if confessing a crime. I've been busy for 25 years, but I don't remember the last time I felt alive. He had mastered productivity but lost connection. He had built a life, yet missed living it. This is the danger of drifting through days without intention. You might fill your calendar, but empty your soul. Stoicism calls us to cut through this fog, to stop living on autopilot. A Stoic doesn't just ask, what am I doing today? He asks, why am I doing it? Because focus is not just about attention, it's about alignment. You can't focus on what matters if you don't first define what matters. Start here. Imagine today is all you have, not in theory, but for real. If there were no guarantees beyond sunset, how would you move through the next hour? Who would you speak to differently? What would you finally stop tolerating? What would you no longer postpone? That's not a morbid question. It's a clarifying one. And Stoics didn't fear death. They used it as a lens to sharpen life. In a world addicted to later, focus begins when you take full ownership of now. The modern man is flooded with distractions not because he lacks willpower, but because he's forgotten what he stands for. When everything feels urgent, nothing is important. When everything is available, nothing is valuable. To change this, start with a simple morning ritual. Before the world pulls you into its chaos, sit in silence, even for 5 minutes. Ask yourself one question. What's the one thing today that truly matters? Then guard that thing like your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it does. And when interruptions come, and they will, remember this. Every distraction you say yes to is a vote against the man you're trying to become. Your focus is not just about productivity. It's your shield against a life that pulls you in directions you never chose. There's a reason people feel empty after chasing goals they never questioned. They followed the noise. They confused motion with meaning. And in the process, they lost the thread of their own story. But you can choose differently. You can live like a Stoic, not by detaching from life, but by stepping fully into it, with clarity, with urgency, with presence. You don't need more time. You need to stop wasting the time you already have. The peace you seek won't come from slowing the world down. It will come from aligning with what matters and cutting everything else out. Because if you don't own today, you'll never own your future. You'll wake up one day wondering how it all slipped away. Not because you didn't work hard, but because you worked on the wrong things. So breathe, get quiet, look at your life without filters, and move forward with intention, not someday, not tomorrow, now. 2. Every failure brings you closer to success. Failure only destroys you when you mistake it for the end. But if you see it for what it truly is, a signal, a spark, a necessary part of your refinement, it becomes one of the most powerful forces behind growth. Not because it feels good, but because it burns away the illusion that progress should be painless. You weren't meant to go through life untouched. You were meant to be shaped, not by comfort, but by pressure. Not by praise, but by resistance. And it's in your response to failure, not the event itself, where your identity is formed. That's the Stoic way. External outcomes are beyond your control, but your mindset, your interpretation, your next move, that's yours. That's where the real power lives. Most people flinch when they fall. They take it personally. They wrap their self-worth around the result. But the Stoic strips all that away. He looks at failure like fire looks at dry wood, something to consume, not fear. Because failure is feedback. It tells you what's not working. It reveals what you haven't mastered. It exposes the cracks that pride tried to hide. And it gives you a decision. Repeat or refine. The mind that is unwilling to fail is the same mind that resists growth. Because every meaningful transformation runs through discomfort. The body doesn't grow stronger until the muscle tears. The blade doesn't become sharp until it's hammered, heated, and honed. Your focus doesn't deepen until it's tested under pressure. You can't build resilience in a vacuum. It has to be earned. Failure brings shame only when you use it as evidence that you're not enough. But it brings wisdom when you use it as proof that you're still becoming. The Stoics didn't just accept failure, they expected it. They walked toward it, knowing every stumble was another step into strength. Not physical strength, mental, emotional, spiritual. The kind of strength that can't be bought or borrowed, only forged. You may not control how many times you fall, but you control how many times you get back up sharper, clearer, stronger. And if you do that long enough, something changes. The fear starts to dissolve. The sting of failure loses its edge, and in its place, there's peace. Not because life got easier, but because you stopped avoiding what builds you. Focus in a Stoic sense isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about facing the fall, steadying your breath, and stepping forward anyway. There's dignity in that. There's freedom in that. Because once you stop being afraid to fail, you start being free to win. Look closely and you'll see every person who's built something that lasts, internally or externally, has failed more times than they can count. But they never let those failures become final. They never let those moments define them. They didn't attach meaning to the fall, they attached meaning to the rise. And that's the difference. The man who wins isn't the man who avoids setbacks. He's the one who trains for them, prepares for them, uses them. Because he knows every failure is another form of training, another layer of discipline, another invitation to dig deeper, think clearer, and act wiser. So next time you fail, don't rush to escape it. Sit with it, study it, strip it down to its lesson. Then get up and do it better. Not because someone's watching, not because you need to prove anything, but because this is how mastery is made. The Stoics believed that hardship wasn't an obstacle to a meaningful life, it was the path to it. And if you're willing to lean into that idea, you'll stop seeing failure as proof that something's wrong. You'll start seeing it as evidence that you're in motion, that you're alive, that you're still in the arena. And that's the only place where anything real ever gets built. So next time you fall, don't ask why me, ask what now. Then move, quietly, decisively, with your head high and your focus sharper than before. 3. Dreams don't come true without action. Dreams are cheap. Everyone has them. You don't get points for having a vision, a goal, a perfect plan. The only thing that separates a dreamer from a builder is action. Quiet, unglamorous, consistent action. That's the part no one wants to talk about because it's not inspiring, it's uncomfortable. But without it, everything you imagine stays exactly that, imagination. You can sit for hours visualizing success, repeat affirmations, build vision boards, and tell yourself you're manifesting the life you want. But if you're not moving your feet, lifting your hands, sharpening your mind, nothing changes. Life doesn't reward wishes, it rewards action. And this is where Stoic philosophy cuts through the fantasy. Stoicism doesn't care what you want, it cares what you do. It teaches you to ground yourself in the present moment, not the distant dream. It challenges you to act without waiting for motivation and to move even when it's hard, boring, or uncertain. That's discipline. That's character. That's the focus. The world is full of men who talk about what they're going to do someday, when they have more time, when the timing feels right. But the Stoic man doesn't wait for the perfect conditions. He creates movement in imperfect ones. He understands that hesitation is the enemy. That clarity doesn't come from thinking more, it comes from doing more. Thinking doesn't build momentum, action does. And it starts small. A single paragraph is written, one meal tracked, one honest conversation had. These are not miracles, they're decisions. Decisions that compound, decisions that build a new identity, one brick at a time. You may say you want discipline, success, peace of mind, but how badly do you want it if you're not willing to move? That's the uncomfortable question Stoicism forces you to face. It holds a mirror to your excuses. It exposes the gap between your words and your actions. And it reminds you, your habits are your true beliefs. What you repeat each day is what you actually value. This is where most people break. Not because they lack potential, but because they romanticize progress and reject the process. They want the rewards without the repetition. They crave the outcome but avoid the effort. And in doing so, they live in limbo, stuck between what they hope for and what they're unwilling to pursue. A Stoic doesn't have time for that. His philosophy is active, practical, rooted in movement. He embraces discomfort, not because it's fun, but because it forges the mind. He acts with intention because action brings clarity, and he lets go of the illusion that thinking alone will change his life. If you've been stuck, waiting for a sign to begin, here it is. The only permission you need is your own. You will never feel fully ready. There will always be a reason to wait. But every time you delay, you deepen your resistance. You strengthen the story that says, I'm not the kind of person who does. And that story becomes a cage, subtle, invisible, but strong enough to trap a lifetime. To break free, start, not with a leap, but with a step. One deliberate, non-negotiable action. Repeat it. Adjust, refine, but don't stop. Because every action you take tells your mind. This matters. It builds momentum, trust, and identity. It makes the abstract tangible. And that's where dreams begin to harden into reality. Stoicism isn't cold or emotionless. It's disciplined emotion, directed energy. It says feel the fear, the hesitation, the doubt, and move anyway. Don't wait to be fearless. Just move forward without letting fear sit in the driver's seat. You don't have to finish the whole race today, but you have to take the next step. You have to stop negotiating with yourself. Stop rehearsing your limitations. Stop idolizing the comfort that's kept you stuck. Begin with what you can control: your time, your effort, your attention. Those three things, if guarded like treasure, can reshape your life. In the end, it's simple. Dreams don't come true because you think about them. They come true because you earn them. And you earn them through repeated acts of courage, clarity, and self-control, no matter how small. So if you're tired of talking, tired of waiting, tired of living in the gap between who you are and who you could be, then get quiet, get honest, and get moving. Because no one can live your dream for you, and no one can build it but you. 4. Letting go is the first step forward. You can't climb while gripping what's weighing you down. It's not your limits that keep you stuck. It's your refusal to release what no longer serves you. And the longer you carry it, the more it hardens into identity, into habit, into a silent resistance to change. We all carry something: regret, resentment, expectations, relationships, old goals that died quietly years ago but still take up space in our minds. We tell ourselves we've moved on, but every thought loops back to what was. And in that loop, focus disappears, presence dissolves. You try to move forward, but your energy is split, one foot chasing the future, the other stuck in the past. There's a moment few notice, not dramatic, not loud, just a quiet tightening in your chest every time you open the door to something you've outgrown. A job that drains you, a friendship rooted in history, not harmony. A routine that once worked but now numbs you. And instead of facing that truth, you rationalize it. You tell yourself to be grateful, to stay patient, to keep trying. But deep down you know, it's not about effort anymore. It's about courage. The courage to let go. Stoic philosophy never preached attachment. Marcus Aurelius warned against clinging to things beyond our control. He didn't say burn it all down. He said step back. Ask if what you're holding is helping or harming. Is this weight making you stronger, or is it just familiar pain dressed as loyalty? Letting go isn't a weakness. It's wisdom. It's knowing that energy is limited, and dragging old baggage through every chapter of your life only slows the story. You can't write the next line if your hands are full of edits from yesterday. You can't focus if part of your mind is still trying to fix what was never yours to carry. And no, letting go doesn't always mean cutting things off. Sometimes it means releasing the version of yourself that's tied to that thing, the identity you built around the title, the role, the expectation. That's the hardest part. Not what you leave behind, but who you thought you had to be to keep it. There's a simple image, a clenched fist. When you hold something too tightly, your hand starts to shake. You lose strength, you lose precision. But the moment you release, blood returns, calm returns, control returns. That's not surrender, that's reclaiming power. Letting go is the first move in reclaiming mental clarity. Without it, discipline feels forced. The action feels chaotic. You can't stay focused while constantly resisting your own reality. The Stoics teach us to meet life as it is, not as we wish it would be. To respond, not react. And you can't respond well if you're tangled in things you should have already walked away from. Do you want to move forward? Empty the mental closet. Name what's draining you. Look it in the eye, not with drama, with honesty. Because sometimes the reason you feel stuck isn't because you're not working hard. It's because you're working in the wrong direction, out of fear, guilt, or habit. This isn't about cutting everything out. It's about pruning, about clarity, about choosing what truly aligns with your growth. You can't build a strong life on the foundation of expired dreams and emotional clutter. You need space to think, to move, to breathe. Focus isn't just about saying yes to the right things, it's about saying no to the noise you've grown used to. Every time you let go of something that no longer fits, you give yourself the chance to rise without resistance. That's why this matters. Because until you release, you remain rooted, not grounded, trapped. The Stoic doesn't chase stillness by hiding from chaos. He faces the storm, sheds the unnecessary, and walks lighter. Not because he's cold, because he's clear. He understands that every burden you refuse to release becomes a wall between you and the life you claim to want. And that's the question, isn't it? How badly do you want to move forward if you're not willing to drop what's holding you back? So pause, look at what you're still gripping. Ask why. Then ask again. And when you're ready, not when it feels easy, but when it feels honest, let go. Let the silence that follows teach you something deeper. Let the space you create welcome something new. Not chaos, not urgency, but peace. Peace is earned by choosing clarity over comfort. Because the first step forward isn't a sprint, it's a release. 5. Take small steps, but never stop moving. Progress doesn't always look powerful. Sometimes it's quiet, almost invisible. A single push-up before sunrise, a 5-minute walk when you're tired, one deep breath instead of an outburst. These moments may seem small, but they are not meaningless. Because what moves you forward is not intensity, it's consistency. There's a man who walks through the park near my apartment every morning at exactly 6:15. He doesn't jog. He doesn't wear earbuds or track steps. He walks the same slow loop every day, rain or shine. One morning I stopped and asked him, why the same route? He smiled and said, I just promised myself I'd never go back to sitting still. That answer stayed with me, not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. He had no interest in chasing some peak. His focus was simple, move forward, every day, no matter what. That mindset is the core of Stoic discipline. It teaches you not to worship sudden change, but to trust steady growth. The Stoics understood that transformation happens one moment at a time, by what you choose today, not what you promise tomorrow. You don't need a master plan to change your life. You need momentum. One action that breaks the inertia. One decision that says, I will not stay here. Because stagnation isn't stillness, it's silent decay. When you stop moving, not only does your progress halt, but your confidence erodes, slowly, quietly, until you begin to believe that nothing works. That's why the small step matters. Not because of what it achieves instantly, but because of what it builds internally. It reminds your mind, I'm not helpless, I'm not stuck, I'm not done. This is how the Stoic stays grounded in chaos. He doesn't demand perfection, he demands progress. He doesn't rely on ideal conditions. He starts where he is with what he has and builds from there. Whether it's 5 minutes of writing, 1 page of reading, or a simple no to a distraction, he understands that every act of effort is a strike against passivity. Small steps don't mean small ambition. They mean strategic patience, controlled movement, the refusal to let fear of the mountain stop you from taking the first climb. And each time you act, especially when no one sees it, you strengthen a part of yourself that no failure can touch: self-respect. The man who moves daily, however quietly, becomes unstoppable not because of speed, but because of endurance. Because when life hits hard, and it will, it's not the biggest dreamers who survive, it's the most consistent movers. We all want breakthrough moments, but what we need is resilience. And resilience is built in repetition. In the mornings you show up tired, in the evenings you resist the shortcut, in the silence where no one applauds, but you still choose to continue. Stoicism doesn't sell the fantasy of instant success. It offers something stronger, a framework for action, no matter the obstacle. Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. In other words, act. Don't announce your goals, build. Build them, brick by brick, step by step, even when it's slow, even when it's quiet, especially when it's hard. This mindset isn't just for difficult seasons. It's for life, because every meaningful path is long. And you don't cross it in leaps, you cross it in inches. You don't arrive at excellence through passion, you arrive through repetition, through self-discipline, through the decision to keep showing up when the emotion is gone and only the habit remains. So if you're overwhelmed by the size of your goal, good, that means you care. But don't freeze, don't wait for confidence to find you. Let movement create it, let each step sharpen your focus. Let each effort remind you who you are. Someone who doesn't quit. There's nothing weak about going slow. Weakness is stopping. Weakness is making excuses dressed as logic. But one step forward, however small, is a victory over the part of you that wants to stay comfortable, stay afraid, stay the same. And that's the only battle that matters. Not between you and the world, but between you and your hesitation, your past, your distraction, your resistance to begin. Win that battle, one action at a time, because movement, no matter how small, is what keeps you alive. And stillness, chosen out of fear, is what slowly takes your power away. 6. Greatness demands sacrifice and discipline. You can't keep everything and rise. That's not how growth works. Greatness always demands a price. The question isn't whether you want success, clarity, or power. The question is whether you're willing to trade for it. Not in money, but in comfort, in habits, in momentary pleasures that seduce you away from the man you say you want to become. Discipline begins where convenience ends. You don't build an unshakable mind by doing what's easy. You don't master anything by skipping the parts that hurt. You sharpen yourself by choosing discomfort when the world offers a distraction. You say no to what's fast, tempting, and fleeting so you can say yes to what's lasting, rare, and real. And yes, it will cost you. Early mornings, late nights, boredom, repetition, the isolation that comes with focus. You'll walk alone sometimes, you'll miss out on things, you'll be misunderstood. But the Stoics didn't flinch at solitude or sacrifice. They embraced it as the weight that shapes men of substance. Seneca said, if you wish to be loved, love yourself first. That kind of love is not indulgent, it's disciplined. It's choosing the long game. It's saying, I respect myself too much to let ease ruin me. Because ease is the enemy of greatness. It whispers, just this once, until one excuse becomes your identity. Every step toward excellence demands a refusal, a cutting away. When you choose to rise, you don't just gain new strength, you lose old weakness. You trade scrolling for study, noise for silence, comfort for control. That's the invisible contract no one talks about. Greatness isn't something you chase. It's something you earn through choices that most will never make. Discipline isn't punishment. It's alignment. It's putting your time where your values are. It's proving through action what truly matters to you. Not in public, in private. When no one's watching, when it's cold, when you're tired, when the world says rest and you say not yet. And if you think you can rise without sacrifice, look again. There's not a single meaningful achievement that didn't require something to be left behind. Whether it's a version of yourself that no longer serves you, a habit that numbs you, or a lifestyle that keeps you small. Greatness asks you to choose, again and again, what's essential over what's easy. Stoicism never promised ease. It offered clarity. It gave you the tools to endure, to remain steady when the storm comes, and to build inner strength while others crumble under pressure. That strength doesn't come from slogans or motivation. It comes from repetition. It comes from mastery of self, not control of others. Every act of discipline is a declaration. I refuse to be ruled by impulse. Every time you delay gratification, you increase your power. Not because you're avoiding pleasure, but because you're defining it on your own terms. You're no longer a slave to cravings, to trends, to the opinion of people who don't even know your name. Greatness isn't about being gifted. It's about being consistent, focused, willing to sacrifice now for a life of substance later. That's the Stoic path. Not flashy but firm. Not loud but immovable. You don't need applause to keep going. You don't need permission to become who you were meant to be. You need only the will to choose the hard path. The one with fewer distractions but greater rewards. The one that doesn't promise ease but offers meaning. The one that demands your whole self, not your half effort. So the next time you feel resistance, don't run. That's the signal. That's the exact place you're being asked to level up. Not with emotion, but with decision. Show up. Cut the noise, do the work, and keep doing it. Because every step you take in discipline is a step away from regret. And every sacrifice you make now builds a future you won't have to escape from. 7. Nothing can stop you unless you let it. Obstacles exist, but whether they stop you or strengthen you is a decision you make every single day. It's not your environment, your past, or even your failures that hold you back. It's the quiet permission you give to fear, self-doubt, and the opinions of others. That's what really stands in your way. Your surrender to what was never in control of you to begin with. Look closely at every time you've hesitated. Every time you've second-guessed yourself, every time you've looked outward for validation instead of inward for clarity. The pattern isn't circumstance, it's mindset. You don't break through by waiting for the world to move. You break through by refusing to stay still. And the Stoics knew this better than anyone. They didn't seek perfect conditions, they trained for adversity. Epictetus was born into slavery, yet he became one of the most powerful thinkers in history. Why? Because he understood that control isn't out there, it's within. You can't dictate the world, but you can command how you meet it. That's the pivot point. That's what determines if life crushes you or carves you into something unshakable. You've been taught to look for obstacles as signs to turn back. But in Stoic philosophy, they are the path itself. What blocks the way becomes the way. That's not a metaphor, it's a mindset. And when you adopt it, you stop waiting for permission to move forward. You stop negotiating with hesitation. You stop acting like a victim in a world that's waiting for you to show up as the main character. Here's what you must accept. The enemy isn't the thing in front of you. It's the doubt behind you. It's the narrative running in your head. I can't. I'm not ready. What will they think? These aren't facts. They're distractions. They're illusions dressed in logic. And if you believe them, they'll slowly make you invisible to your own potential. So how do you break through? You stop treating your power like a privilege someone else has to give you. You take it back. You act. Not when it feels right, not when the stars align, but when everything in you says, I'm not enough, you move anyway. That kind of strength, quiet, steady, relentless, is what Stoicism breeds. It's not about being unaffected. It's about being unshaken. It's not about ignoring fear. It's about mastering it, not by denying it exists, but by refusing to let it dictate your next step. Do you want to know what's holding you back? It's not your boss. It's not your past. It's not your failures. It's the moment you choose to listen to the voice that said, play it safe. That voice will always be there. But so will the part of you that knows this isn't who you're meant to be. And no, it's not about pushing harder all the time. It's about pushing smarter. It's about deciding clearly and consistently what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Because every ounce of energy spent on fear is one less ounce of building the life you want. The Stoic doesn't just face adversity. He uses it. He understands that every setback is a mirror. It shows you what's untrained, what's unfinished, what needs to be sharpened. That's not defeat. That's feedback. That's an opportunity. That's the exact moment your mind can transform from a victim of pressure to the master of it. So if you feel like something is holding you down, ask yourself, what part of me is letting it? Because that's where your power begins. In the confrontation, in the decision, in the refusal to hand your agency over to noise and fear. You don't need to wait for confidence. It will not arrive before action. It's born through it. The man who walks forward in doubt is still moving. And movement, no matter how hesitant, still builds momentum. Every time you hesitate, remind yourself, it's not the world saying no, it's you not saying yes. Say yes to the discipline. Say yes to the process. Say yes to the version of yourself that doesn't need applause, doesn't need proof, doesn't need anything but the next step. Because when you stop asking for permission to rise, you begin to rise. And when you refuse to be stopped, nothing, absolutely nothing, can stop you. 8. Growth has no finish line. We've been sold a lie that one day if we work hard enough, we'll finally arrive. At peace, at success, at a point where we no longer have to try. But there is no finish line. Not in the discipline, not in self-mastery, not in growth. Because the moment you stop moving, you're not standing still, you're falling behind. The mind craves closure, certainty, an endpoint to chase. It wants a final reward after years of effort. But life doesn't hand out medals. It hands you mornings. It hands you choices. It hands you another chance to show up stronger or to slip into old patterns. Growth doesn't care about what you've done. It cares about what you're doing now. You wake up today thinking the job is done because you reached a goal. But your habits don't retire. Your thoughts don't freeze. Your ego doesn't vanish. The voice that says you've made it is the same voice that will sabotage everything you've built because it wants comfort. And comfort is how potential dies slowly, quietly, without resistance. The Stoics never measured progress by external markers. They didn't talk about winning, they talked about becoming. Every day, every moment, every breath was a chance to live with more clarity, more resilience, and more control. That's the point. Not to cross a finish line, but to become the kind of person who doesn't need one. Ask yourself, who do you want to be when no one's watching? When there are no goals left to impress anyone? When there's nothing shiny to chase? Because the man you are in the quiet moments is the only one who lasts. That's where growth lives. Not in applause, but in reflection. In your ability to look yourself in the eye and say, I'm not done yet. And you shouldn't be. Because the moment you believe you've arrived, you stop doing the things that got you there. You stop sharpening, you stop learning, you stop humbling yourself to the process. The same process that built your strength will become a burden if you think you're above it. Everything you've built can be lost, not through catastrophe, but through drift, slowly. One excuse at a time, one skipped habit, one moment of pride where you forget that your discipline is what carried you. The Stoics warned about this. Seneca said, while we waste our time hesitating and postponing, life is slipping away. Not in sudden drops, but in quiet decay. So what do? You recommit daily. You show up like it's day one, because it always is. You don't do the work because you have to. You do it because that's who you are. That's what real growth is. Showing up again, not because you're forced to, but because you refuse to let yourself shrink. The river never stops flowing. The body never stops changing. The mind never stops thinking. So why should your progress stop just because you hit a goal? The idea of done is a trap. And if you fall into it, you'll spend the rest of your life chasing a version of yourself that only existed in the past. Growth is not a state, it's a way of moving through the world. You grow every time you choose presence over distraction, patience over overreaction, and discipline over impulse. These are not boxes to check. They are muscles to train. And like all muscles, they atrophy when ignored. Don't let comfort fool you into thinking you're evolving. Comfort is easy. What's hard is facing yourself daily, confronting your weaknesses without shame, and choosing to work on them anyway. Not because you're broken, but because you respect the man you're becoming too much to stop now. The finish line you're chasing doesn't exist. And that's not bad news. It's liberation. It means you don't have to rush. You don't have to perform, you just have to move, intentionally, steadily, with clarity, with purpose. And if you fall, you stand back up, not because it's inspiring, but because it's required. You're not here to impress anyone, you're here to become someone. And that someone isn't found in the end. He's forged in the process. So wake up tomorrow knowing you'll still be climbing, still refining, still discovering the next layer of yourself. And that's exactly how it should be. When you finally understand that growth has no finish line, you stop running in circles chasing approval, and you start walking forward with power. If there's one truth you take from this, let it be this. Focus is not something you wait for. It's something you train, day by day, thought by thought, in silence, in chaos, in the quiet choices that no one else sees. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't pursue peace by escaping the world. They forged it from within. Because real peace comes not from ease, but from mastery over the self. You now hold 10 core reminders, 10 pillars that can anchor your mind in a distracted world. From remembering that today is all you truly have, to know that growth has no finish line, each one points you back to the same place. Responsibility. Not to outcomes, but to your own attention, your discipline, your mindset. What you focus on shapes your reality. That's not just philosophy, it's neuroscience, it's self-awareness, it's personal power. You will be pulled in every direction. You will be tested by failure, temptation, fear, and fatigue. But the choice to center yourself, to stay aligned, to keep moving, no matter what, belongs only to you. So don't just let this video be another thing you consume. Let it become a practice. Choose one idea, reflect on it, apply it, write it down, live it until it becomes instinct, then move to the next. And as you walk this path, remember, you're not alone. Share your reflections, your struggles, or your victories in the comments. Someone out there may need to hear exactly what you've learned. Train your mind to stay clear when the world gets loud. Stay focused, stay grounded, stay unshakable.